Sea level rise in Miami, Florida. Temperatures in Earth's atmosphere continue to rise each year, creating a wake of destruction. Sea levels are rising around the globe, with forecasts predicting dire situations for Earth's coastal cities. 8 out of 10 of the largest cities in the globe are located on the coast and home to about 40% of the population, global commerce, and important infrastructure. Miami, Florida, in the United States, is the city discussed to see how sea level rise is affecting their city and adaptation measures taken to help counteract the unwanted changes. Population density and socioeconomics are big concerns when discussing the impacts of sea level rise in Miami. The results are undeniable, with coastal cities around the globe at risk for serious impacts due to sea level rise. To speak about sea level rise, you must have an understanding of climate change. Climate change is due to anthropogenic emissions of greenhouse gases which cause the atmosphere to warm. Fossil fuel burning is the main source of the emissions. Since the Industrial Revolution, the global temperatures have increased by about 2 degrees Fahrenheit, and since the 1980s, the rate of increase has doubled. Scientists developed a standard that we must limit our temperature increase to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2040 in order to avoid constant turmoil around the globe with extreme weather patterns and disasters, in addition to sea level rise. Sea levels have risen about 8 to 9 inches since the beginning of the 20th century, with projections to rise by at least 1 foot over the levels measured in the year 2000, even if greenhouse gas emissions stay level. The situation becomes dire if greenhouse gas levels rise, with projected sea levels rising by 3 feet or more by the end of the century. From 2006 to 2015, the global mean water level rose by 2.5 times that average rate seen throughout most of the 20th century. Some ocean basins of the globe are seeing even higher increase in sea levels, and this can be because of wind and ocean currents, which affect the specific heat capacity of the ocean and in which layer of the water the heat is stored. The geological factors of land contribute to sea level rise seen as well. Ground settling, if the area is still rebounding from the ice age wave, and regional currents and upstream flooding would make the area more vulnerable to sea level rise. In the United States, Miami and the Gulf of Mexico and the Mid-Atlantic regions are where we are seeing the highest levels of sea level rise. As global temperatures rise, Earth's ocean temperatures rise too. The ocean's heat capacity allows it to absorb a lot of heat energy. When the water is warmed, thermal expansion happens, causing ocean waters to expand from the trapped heat. The volume that the ocean water takes up increases, leading to sea level rise. The increased temperatures of the atmosphere and consequently the ocean are leading to the polar ice caps and glaciers melting, adding additional fresh water to the oceans, making the sea levels rise. When you combine these factors, you are left with the total amount of sea level rise we see globally. Around the globe, 8 out of 10 of the largest cities in the world are near a coast, with 40% of the globe's population, or 2.4 billion people, located within 60 miles of the coast. Not only does this mean population is at risk, but global commerce and infrastructure is vulnerable. In the United States, about 40% of the population live in coastal cities where they are most vulnerable to sea level rise. This means that even before areas of cities risk being submerged underwater, they will have more experiences due to the sea level rise. Like in Miami, they are experiencing sunny day flooding, which is connecting to high tides. Often, these flooding events are seen during a high tide or with a full moon. Sunny day flooding is about 300 to 900% more likely in Miami than it was just 50 years ago. Dire outcomes due to sea level rise in Miami. Situations in Miami and most of Florida are dire in regard to sea level rise. Even at 2 degrees Celsius, forecasts show almost the entire bottom third of Florida submerged. This leaves over 7 million people at risk and billions of dollars in property at risk for flooding in the next 10 years. The population in Miami is only growing too, meaning more people will be affected by sea level rise and more policies need to be implemented to make sure all persons remain safe. In the map shown here, you can see satellite images from the years 2001 and 2020, and then below them the land classifications. In 2001, you will see a lot of purple and lighter reds among other colors, but by 2020, the purple, which represents undeveloped land, is gone, and most colors have changed to shades of red, which indicates various population densities, with lighter red being less dense and bright red being high density areas. Climate change and sea level rise also means more frequent hurricanes and evacuations. Evacuating for a hurricane or retrofitting your house to withstand sea level rise is not an inexpensive endeavor, and a lot of Miami's population lies under the poverty level. This map shows average household incomes in Miami, and all the areas of light tan show households that make less than $30,000 a year. Adaptation and mitigation strategies are continuously seen in City Hall and state votes. Noteworthy strategies are the upgrading of pump stations to improve drainage, the formation of a stormwater management plan strictly targeted for hurricane storm surge, the rising of seawalls, and moving citizens out of the most vulnerable neighborhoods, leaving those areas abandoned. New government roles were created, such as Chief Resilient Officer, in order to put the means and brainpower strictly towards the city's issues with sea level rise. The city put out an adaptation strategy which includes building on fill to elevate roads and low-level areas, building all infrastructure like the Florida Keys on pills, promote new development in the areas of the city known as the Ridge, which is on naturally higher ground, and build more canals and waterfront parks to make room for the water. These green and blue neighborhoods will be designated as like rain gardens to live with the water. Policies that combat climate change and rising sea levels and GHG emissions are directly linked to sea level rise, even if it isn't the main focus. Like I mentioned in earlier slides, the sea levels are rising because of the increased temperatures in the atmosphere. So in order to stop sea level rise, we must control global warming. However, mitigation and adaptation are key to making sure we don't lose our coastal cities where populations can be effective. The United States House of Natural Resource Committee introduced the Ocean-Based Climate Solution Act in 2021. The legislation addresses climate change impacts such as sea level rise to our oceans and coastal communities while reforming ocean policy for climate mitigation. OCED put together the frameworks for the OCED countries so that OCED countries can work together and use national adaptation and mitigation strategies to combat climate change. Climate change policies are where you will find policies associated with sea level rise internationally, with the major international agreements being the United States, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, the Kyoto Protocol, and the Paris Climate Convention